Good morning. Good morning. You're an orderly lot for such an early Sunday morning occasion. You're all seated before the appointed hour, so welcome to the Getty. I'm Tim Whalen. I'm the director of the Getty Conservation Institute, and it is indeed my pleasure to welcome you all here very early on a Sunday morning to what will be, I think, a terrific two-day symposium. On behalf of my colleagues at the Getty Museum, the Getty Foundation, it is indeed our pleasure to have you all here and to welcome you to the symposium facing the challenges of panel painting conservation, trends, treatments, and training. This symposium is but one of the components of the Panel Paintings Initiative, a multi-year collaborative project undertaken by the Getty Conservation Institute, the J. Paul Getty Museum, and the Getty Foundation. Many of you know that this is not the first time the Getty has organized a symposium on this topic. April marked the 14th anniversary of our first panel painting symposium, a 5-day event hosted then by the GCI and the Getty Museum that explored a range of issues related to wood panels, wood science and technology, the history of panel making, the history of structural stabilization, and then the most recent approaches to their stabilization. I'm pleased that quite a few of the people who participated in that earlier event, either as speakers or as members of the audience, are here with us this morning. One of our motives in 1995 for organizing the symposium was to document both the traditional and contemporary techniques used for the stabilization of panels. There was a clear imperative for doing so.
The first generation of panel conservators, many of whom were craftspeople trained in traditional woodworking skills, would soon retire from the scene, and in many cases without passing on knowledge to their immediate circle. The 1995 symposium documented the various approaches to structural stabilization as they evolved both in Europe and in the United States, including treatments by some very early pioneers of the conservation profession who sought to reconcile craft traditions with growing scientific understanding of the physical and chemical aspect of materials. But we had a second motivation for organizing the 1995 symposium. In addition to documenting the thinking and working practices of that first wave of panel conservators, we had hoped that the symposium would serve as a catalyst for the development of new training that would assure a transfer of knowledge and skill to the next generation of panel conservators. We're pleased that the first symposium and its proceedings had successfully captured that information that otherwise would have been lost or hard to access at a minimum. And I'm happy to say that the publication that resulted from the 1995 symposium has become a key reference for the field, and I should note is available for 10% off in the lobby later today. However, there remains one unfinished task for all of us, and that's the training of a new generation of panel conservators. Then as now, the structural stabilization of painted panels is carried out by relatively few people in the world, and indeed, you know who you are. We still face the situation that confronted us 14 years ago. The number of professionals who are able to deal with structural problems of painted panels is dwindling, due in large part to the lack of opportunities for a younger generation of professionals to acquire skills from their more experienced and seasoned colleagues. I was joking with a colleague earlier this morning that perhaps we're all a little nervous about doing this because it just means we're getting older and older, and we don't want to acknowledge that. Last year, we began to discuss this situation first with our colleagues here at the Getty, and subsequently with a group of respected colleagues from a number of other organizations, all of whom share a long history of experience with panel paintings. We felt it was time to look again at this topic, and among other things, to bring broader attention to some of the important research and practical work that has been taking place since we all met here in Los Angeles in 1995. However, we also see an opportunity to address the long-term and long-standing need for information, education, and didactic resources on the structural stabilization of panel paintings. So let me suggest, rather than these 2 days being a standalone event, this symposium serves as the public launch of an important multi-pronged initiative that takes up the now critical challenge of providing training for the next generation of panel painting conservators. As you will hear later today and tomorrow, this project has several components. In addition to the symposium and the publication of its proceedings, the Panel Paintings Initiative also includes a major survey that is investigating the training and professional needs of panel paintings conservators. That survey, funded by the Getty Foundation, is being carried out by colleagues at the State Museum of Art in Copenhagen in conjunction with the School of Conservation of the Royal Danish Academy of Fine Arts. The results of the survey will guide the subsequent development of the initiative's training component, which will include residencies and short-term workshops. You'll learn more about the results of the survey, and the concept of training residencies and the eventual workshops later this week from my colleagues, and indeed I imagine many of you will be asked to participate, run, and lead them. You will also hear about work already underway to compile a bibliography of panel paintings, publications, and related resources. Undertaken within the framework of the survey, this bibliography will be an online searchable resource that will not only serve the training component of this project, but the field at large. The bibliography will be available on the GCI's website, which will also eventually feature a video of this symposium as well as the proceedings. And as a nod to past days, we are even planning to do a printed version of the proceedings. As I have said, the Panel Paintings Initiative is a collaboration among several programs at the J. Paul Getty Trust, my colleagues at the museum and at the foundation and the GCI. But this initiative benefits also from the collaboration of a number of remarkable individuals and institutions who have already contributed to the development of various components of the initiative. In fact, I think it is no exaggeration to say that the goals of the Panel Paintings Initiative would not be possible to achieve without them. As members of the advisory group for this project, they have generously given their ideas and their time and their yesterday, to the early formative stages of the Panel Paintings Initiative, and we look forward to their continued involvement in the work. I would especially like to thank the members of the advisory group, George Bazaka of the Metropolitan Museum of Art and Jørgen Vadum State Museum of Art in Copenhagen. They are the co-chairs of the advisory committee, and the other members of the committee are Simon Bobak, conservator in London, Marco Ciatti from the Opificio della Pietrature, Paul Van Doorn, the Rijksmuseum, and Ian McClure at the Yale University Art Gallery. They have been assisted in their work by Michael Gallagher, Anne Hacka Christensen, Ciro Castelli, Rupert Featherstone, Ray Marchand, and an expanding number of other experts who support the goals of this project. The Getty project team includes David Bomford, Mark Leonard, and Sue Ann Shui from the J. Paul Getty Museum, Joan Weinstein and Antoine Wilmering from the Getty Foundation, and Kathleen Dardis, Sean Charette, Alan Phoenix, and Reem Baroudi of the GCI. So, as you can see, this Panel Paintings Symposium is more than just these 2 days. It is rather an ambitious and far-ranging project that will draw upon the collective knowledge of everyone in this room. We hope that we will be able to pass on these skills and assure that the preservation of panel paintings will continue in an uninterrupted fashion in the future. Perhaps we will have all been avoiding this because it simply means that we're all getting older, but now's the time to come together to assemble this knowledge and pass it on. Over the course of the next several years, we welcome the prospect of working not only with the members of our advisory group, but also with many members of the audience in the development of training and education programs and the expansion of resources for the field. We look forward to discussing the goals of the initiative with you further and hearing your ideas over these coming days. I'd like to thank you all for being present, for coming to Los Angeles to work with us, and advancing this important agenda. So I hope these 2 days will be valuable, fruitful, and indeed enjoyable for each of you. It's now my turn, and I will be getting out of the way to begin the actual scientific program. So indeed, it is now my pleasure to welcome to the podium Ian McClure of the Yale University Art Gallery as moderator of this morning's session. Ian.